And it's important to, again, keep in mind the reason we established for so long this book is because going back to his preface, we just read Ahnsahnghong say that the way to interpret Revelation and who the bride is that that's the saints. You go back to the preface and he says, this is the unchanging truth of God. You guys you have to do something with that. You don't just pass over that. That's incredibly significant. I think, too, in chapter 15, we can maybe talk about this for a second. In chapter 15, he also has this quote where he says, the New Jerusalem will come down to this earth from heaven 1,000 years from now. So do you guys see any issues with the WMSCOG doctrine with what Ahnsahnghong says there?
Yeah, she came before the 1,000 years.
Yeah, it didn't take 1,000 years for her to come.
It took about, from the time this was written, it took about 10 years. Okay.
Another quote I want to read from chapter 16. Ahnsahnghong says, let's read the Bible passage, the passages that Suen uses to claim that she is the only bride. If the matter at hand proves to be false, we must know that everything that she says is false. That to me is incredibly significant, because if he's applying it there, doesn't that apply to everything we're doing here with the World Mission Society Church of God? If we're finding something, if we're finding something here that the WMSCOG teaches that contradicts Ahnsahnghong from his own words, that means everything they say is false.
Right. Well, Jesus said himself, he says, you'll cut down that tree. If the root is evil, you'll cut down the whole tree and throw it into the fire.
Yeah.
That's a quote from Christ in the Gospels.
Yep. So if we're finding something false, then here that the WMSCOG is contradicting Ahnsahnghong, that proves everything they say is false. Again, this is Ahnsahnghong's words at this point. This isn't us. This is Father that is saying these things. Okay, let me look. There's several other quotes here. Looks like I think in chapter 16 I had another one written down. I don't think I've read this one yet. But Ahnsahnghong says, it is written that the Spirit and the bride say, come. That's in Revelation 22:17. It is true that the bride here is the same bride found in Revelation 21:9-10, since it is written, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. And then actually there's this part after this that I want to read too. So he says, the wife of the Lamb is the saints. Therefore, just as the prophecy of the bride stands for the New Jerusalem in heaven, and the New Jerusalem stands for the 144,000 saints. He's saying it over and over again.
Jordan, this is super important, right, to bring this up right now. So in the Staff of Moses in chapter 1, on the second page, there's a heading. It says, the wife of the Lamb has two meanings. And what they're basically saying here is they say, yeah, you can, wife of the Lamb, just like the idea of lambs, has two meanings. Well, it's expressed sometimes as the wife of Christ, a different meaning depending on the context. And the real point they get to here is the wife of Christ can refer to the church, the saints, in certain verses that we, the opposers, quote. But the wife of the Lamb, who gives the water of life as the heavenly wedding banquet, which is exactly what Jordan's reading right here, this part only refers to Heavenly Mother. And that's the exact quote from the book. So that's kind of the three-stage, argument here. One is that, what is the grounds of the opposers? Well, we're saying that the bride of Christ is always the church, not mother. Point number two, there's two meanings of lamb, just like, other words, they remember said Christ is the lamb, we're lamb, small l, different. And they're trying to do the equivocation game. And they say, see, wife of lamb has two meanings too. And the difference here is that this lamb in Revelation is obviously a second deity, because she's the one who gives the water of life. Well, who did Ahnsahnghong say is giving the water of life in Revelation 22:17? The church.
The church.
And that's the whole argument they're trying to use here in Staff of Moses.
And it's interesting that they say, again, in the Staff of Moses, they say the wife of the Lamb who gives the water of life at the heavenly wedding banquet only refers to the Heavenly Mother. But however you view this book that Ahnsahnghong wrote here, what is clear, if you believe Ahnsahnghong, is that the only way to interpret who the bride is can't just be Heavenly Mother, because even if somehow you squeeze in the idea of Heavenly Mother after reading this, it's clear that Ahnsahnghong thought that the bride in Revelation can refer both to the saints, at least to the saints also. And so that quote in the Staff of Moses that this can only refer to Heavenly Mother is just one more thing that Ahnsahnghong directly contradicts, because his interpretation of Revelation here has nothing to do with Heavenly Mother, and it has everything to do with the saints.
Right.
So they're saying that concepts and words can have two meanings. We could turn that right back at them to say, yeah, they do. This is the church again. Burden of proof is on you to show there's why is another female deity. And the whole of Scripture says there's one God. The Jews believed in one God. Christians believe in one God. Christianity and Judaism are monotheistic religions. We're not polytheistic. And that's taught to every Jewish kid since he's a little kid. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Deuteronomy 6:4, the Shema. And they actually believe in two different deities. We're going to see that also later in Staff Book, where it's really clear. The church doesn't believe in one God with like a female-male part. They actually believe in two separate gods, one God plus one God, a male God and a female God. They are polytheists. You can't be a polytheist and be a Christian.
So another quote, Ahnsahnghong says, and I believe this is chapter 16, talk about the tabernacle. So he says, when this tabernacle, again, this is going back to a point we just covered. When this tabernacle comes down to this earth, it will be 1,000 years after the world has ended. When continuing to examine Revelation 21 through 15 carefully, it is seen that the prophecy will come to pass 1,000 years after the world has ended. The events mentioned in Revelation 20, 21 through 22 come to pass after the millennial kingdom. So this special attention must be paid to this point. Again, that's Ahnsahnghong's words that I just read, that he says is the unchanging truth of God. Ahnsahnghong is saying that the heavenly Jerusalem, the tabernacle, that will come down to this earth 1,000 years after the world has ended. So, Kelsey and Steve, has the world ended yet?
Not to my knowledge.
Well, they thought it was going to end in 1988 and 2000, 2012, and no, it hasn't.
But we at least know that according to Ahnsahnghong, we still have at least 1,000 years till any possibility that the heavenly Jerusalem could come down to this earth.
Right. According to Ahnsahnghong, yes.
So what does that say about Zongil-ja? So let me ask you this, Kelsey. So first, what would that say about Zongil-ja and the truthfulness of whether she can be Mother God or not? And then with your member hat on, respond in any way you want to what's been said here.
Well, according to what Ahnsahnghong wrote here, she,
if
the New Jerusalem
with
were a person,
this quote I just read and the other quotes, obviously we've been reading from Ahnsahnghong, what does that mean? What does that say about Zongil-ja?
The timing has not happened. So she can't be this tabernacle, this New Jerusalem, because, he wrote this in the early 80s.